Imagination, Chapter 2. Lonely Dr. Hoofs. It was terrible. I was sitting on the balcony, my notebook on my lap, and I had just written the end of one of my stories. It had been so nice and epic when it had all been in my head, but now that I saw it on paper, I couldn't help myself but think that this was the worst thing I had ever written. So many things were missing, so many mysteries left unsolved. Could I simply trash it and rewrite the whole thing? So far nobody had seen it after all. I was the only one who knew about this horrible work of mine. But then again, I had worked on it for hours on end, and I really wanted to finish the story. It had begun as a proof of concept. I wanted to prove that writing a 10-minute script didn't take a month. For that reason I had adapted the idea of a crossover between Doctor Who and My Little Pony in the first place. For the last few months, though, it had become tedious. I had to come up with one plot twist after another, had to write so many dialogues. It just wasn't fun anymore. Sighing, I took my notebook and got to work releasing this final chapter on YouTube. I knew that some people would not like it, and some might even demand my head on a silver plate, but at this point I just wanted to get it over with. About half an hour later I had it all recorded and uploaded to my channel. I just wanted to roll myself a cigarette and take a break for a while. Maybe play some World of Warcraft? That would have been nice. My Death Knight still needed some gear that A strange sound came from behind me. It was familiar, and yet totally alien to me. All the stuff that was lying around in my room started to fly about, in a strong wind that had suddenly picked up. When I tried to turn around, I got hit in the face by my old Optimus Prime toy, some remnant of my childhood, and everything went dark around me. As I came to, I heard a sound that kind of reminded me of a mechanism that desperately needed some oil. Opening my eyes revealed that I was in a dome-shaped room and was actually lying on a metal catwalk. In front of me stood a pony wearing a tattered tuxedo. I face-palmed, thinking back to my experience with the Moonsinger. As it turned out, it was not a good idea to hit myself in the face when a particular plastic toy had done that only minutes before. My head started to hurt instantly, and I cursed my own stupidity under my breath. The pony in front of me, whom I immediately identified as my version of Dr. Hoofs, whirled on me, an almost crazy grin splitting his muzzle. I could see that his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked even more disheveled than when I had ended my story. His blue eyes were locked on mine as the grin disappeared. I may have said it before, but I will say it again. I am not a very brave man. Seeing this pony, whom I had created, look at me in utter fury, almost made my heart stop. Aside from the fact that I still had no idea how this was even possible, I feared he might throw me into a supernova or something. "Bring her back," he finally said, his voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Bring who? Oh." It dawned on me. I had just written that final chapter too, so how could it be that I had actually taken this long to figure out why he was angry with me? Octavia Melody. I had no attachments to that character other than I thought that she was kind of cool. That had been the reason why I had chosen her as my doctor's companion on a quest to save not only Equestria, but all of creation. At that moment I really wished I had made him more of a pacifist. There was one question that had to be answered, however, and I was determined to ask it before I got thrown into a supernova, abandoned on a hostile planet, or brought to the Daleks for experimentation. "How the heck did you even know I was the one who did it?" I asked, trying to push the brown earth pony away a bit so I could stand up. "Oh, don't play dumb with me. Your dimensional harmony was all over the place. It was all a matter of isolating the little disturbances in Equestria's time stream, analyze them, and come here. Took me almost a year to find a way into this reality." I was stunned. I loved Doctor Who. I loved My Little Pony. I had created an adaptation of those two of my very own, and that very character had now come for me. I already knew that the end I had written for him was maybe the worst thing I had ever written, but I was done with him. He was a short-lived annoyance, something I had hoped to be rid of forever. Yet it seemed that he had other plans. Look, I have already published the ending of your story, and I don't plan to get back to it. Besides, Octavia is not dead, nor is she locked in time somewhere. She's probably holding that concert for the princess right about now. So why don't you just go and talk to her about it? I asked, my tone a little annoyed due to my headache. He slumped, shaking his head as if I was some kid that didn't know the first thing about life. Don't you understand? Her avatar may hold that concert, but it's not really her. I want her to travel with me. I wanted to show her the wonders of the universe, a universe that I myself have not explored yet either. But her avatar can't come with me, and her real body is trapped inside of that tree. So do something about it. I beg you. She doesn't deserve to be trapped in there for all eternity. He begged, new tears forming in his eyes. I suddenly felt pity for him. Sure, his story had been annoying me for almost 6 months, and I was glad that I had ended it, but even I was not too happy about the way I had done it. An idea struck me. I wouldn't rewrite the end, nor would I pick up another Dr. Hoof's story anytime soon. But there was something else I might be able to do. I walked over to the TARDIS controls and set the course for where I needed us to be at that moment. I just somehow knew how to fly it. In retrospect, it was a little freaky, but all that counts is that it worked out in the end. It took me some effort to drag a sulking and kicking doctor through the door when we had arrived, but I managed it. I would need a shower when I got home, since my shirt was already damp with sweat, but I couldn't have cared less at that moment. When we both emerged from the blue police box, 2 very surprised Elecon princesses were looking at us. I had brought us directly into the private lobby of the 2 in the Canterlot Theatre. Down below, hundreds upon hundreds of ponies were watching the performance on stage. Octavia's concert had just begun. "Doctor?" Princess Luna asked, while Princess Celestia's muzzle hung open in shock. As soon as he heard the voice, he stopped fighting me and looked up, wide-eyed. I had remembered something. Something I had put into that last chapter. A hint that the doctor, even though I named him Lonely Dr. Hoofs, was not destined to be alone. Instantly he straightened himself, brushing dust off of his torn tuxedo. Princess Celestia finally composed herself. I would lie if I would say that she was gentle about pulling me out of there by the scruff of my neck, but then again I remembered that she had also suffered due to my bad writing. When she set me down in the hall, I was prepared for an outburst like the doctor's, but nothing of the sort happened. Instead, she smiled at me. "Let's give the 2 of them some time alone so they can talk, shall we?" she asked me, gesturing to a bench that stood not far away. We talked quite a bit. She didn't hold the struggles I had put her through against me. Quite the contrary. She actually thanked me over and over again. I was a little baffled at that. Lonely Dr. Hoofs was my worst work ever, and she was thanking me? Don't get me wrong, you did put us through quite a lot, but if it were not for your imagination, then none of us would ever have lived. Not in this form, at least. I'm quite aware of other Celestias out there who were sought up by others just like you. But this life, the life I am living and the love that you have awakened in my sister, these are things that I am grateful for. She elaborated when she saw my stunned expression. Chuckling, Celestia, you created me, so I think it's alright if you just call me Celestia. Her words, not mine. Summoned something with her magic. With a small puff of smoke, a book appeared. It was my notebook. Just so that you won't be able to put me or my sister through any more difficulties, I think I will hold on to this. In exchange, I want you to have one of these. The White Elecon princess finished, taking out a pendant from under her regalia. I had absolutely no idea what it was. I had not written that thing, and I was certainly not fine with someone, some pony, to keep my notebook. The only physical copy of my Lonely Dr. Hoof's story was in there. Still, her expression told me that it would be no use to try and argue with her about it. Sighing, I took the pendant, only to realize that it was a locket. a locket that I could not open, no matter how hard I tried. I put all my concentration into trying to flip it open, but nothing happened. When I looked up again, wanting to ask her what this was all about, I realized that I was back in my room, which was a total mess. My notebook, which had been on my desk before all of this happened, was indeed gone, and I was sitting on a bench that looked like it was more expensive than any other part of my furniture, but it was nice and soft, so I decided against selling it. In the middle of my bedroom, clutching a golden locket with Celestia's cutie mark on it. I would be able to hide the locket, but explaining the bench to my father would be a crisis all on its own.